Welcome to this recording over solving absolute value equations and inequalities. So these three examples, A, B, and C, are worked very differently. So it's important that you identify the difference in the questions and also the difference in the way the answers look. So before we start solving, I'm going to come in here and turn off this camera so that the full screen is on the actual question. So it's important to identify the difference in these three questions. Note that part A is an equation. Okay, so with it being an equation, that means we'll have, probably two solutions to it. The second two, B and C, these are both inequalities. So absolute values, inequalities. But they're going to be worked differently because one is the less than symbol and one is the greater than symbol. And the answers to all of these are going to look different also. So you need to be sure that you're separating all of your understanding of these three different versions of solving, because often these are compiled into the same section of a textbook. So let's do what I claim to be the easiest one, which is the first one, which is the absolute value equation. So let's look at this equation. So part A is the absolute value of A plus 3 minus 1 equaling 6. The first thing we want to do is get the absolute value term by itself on one side of the equation. So I need to move the 1 to the other side of the equation by doing the opposite, or adding 1 to each side. So then I have the absolute value of A plus 3 equaling 7. Once I have the absolute value by itself on the left side, then what I want to do is eliminate the absolute value. So to eliminate it, or to absorb it, or incorporate it into the solving process, I create two branches. So one branch is to write the equation and just pretty much eliminate the absolute value. The same equation. The left side is to write the equation, but change the right side of the equation to negative. So note in this step, I eliminate or absorb or apply the absolute value. So it's now removed, and I just need to solve each of these equations. So if I subtract 3 from the right equation, I get A equaling 4. If I subtract 3 from the left, I get A equaling a negative 10. These are my two solutions. So I've done all the work. These are my answers. And often we will put these answers in what they call set notation, which are these braces. And then you put your two solutions in the middle with a comma between them. So part A, the equation is done. Now, part B of this question is where we have the less than symbol and the absolute value inequality. This is the less than or equal to, actually. So when I solve with an inequality, I'm going to have many answers, not just a couple, but numerous answers. So the first thing I need to do, just as with the equation, is get the absolute value term isolated. So I need to get the 1 over to the other side of the equation by adding it. Now, a lot of instructors will turn this into a situation in which we're using the word and or. I don't do that. If it's a less than symbol, I just write this as a compound inequality. So first I write it and just remove the absolute value, but then I repeat the less than inequality, and the left side of the compound inequality will make that 7 negative. Or the right side of the original inequality will now become negative. Notice I do not have an absolute value symbol anymore. I've incorporated it by creating the compound inequality. Now I need to solve for A. So I subtract 3 now from all three portions of the compound inequality and get the result that A falls between a negative 10 and a positive 4. This is a large number of solutions. A could be 1, 2, 3, 3.5, 3 3/4, 3.9, etc. Or negative values, -7, -6. Huge number of solutions. So we normally write this huge number of solutions in interval notation or as a graph. So I'm going to first graph it. I don't get really fancy with my graphs. This is just a number line. And our values fall between -10 and 4. So I put a bar over all numbers between -10 and 4. Now since it says less than or equal to, I include the 4 and I include the -10 as solutions, which is represented by using the square bracket. Now this is what they call a graphical representation of your many solutions. Now often they'll want you to write these solutions in interval notation. So interval notation says what is your leftmost value and your rightmost value of solutions on the number line. So my leftmost value under the bar is a -10, and my rightmost value is 4. So I'm going from -10 to 4. And then I repeat the square brackets, this is a comma, and this is interval notation representing your many solutions. So you can see there's a big difference when you're solving with the less than symbol versus when you had the equality. So the third portion of this question, I'm trying to help you focus on the questions and the way they appear. The third portion of this question is the absolute value of the a plus 3 minus 1, but rather than less than or equal to 6, it's now greater than or equal to 6. So equation, inequality, inequalities have interval answers, and now another inequality which is going to have an interval answer. So kind of same thing, want to move the 1 out of the way so I get the absolute value by itself, and once I have the absolute value by itself, then I do the process of eliminating it. So at the greater than symbol, I make 2 branches. Again, the right side will be pretty much identical to the original, but remove the absolute value. And the left branch is a 2-part change. So one of the 2 parts is to reverse the direction of the inequality, and the other of the 2 parts is to make the right side negative, or a -7. So I've created 2 branches, and now I solve each of these. Notice that I have absorbed or applied the absolute value. It's no longer in these inequalities. So solve each branch. I subtract 3 off of each side of the inequality. And again, I subtract 3 off of each side of the inequality. Now, you might have seen the word or written between these, which is fine. Now, to get my graph of all of these solutions, because this is an infinite number of solutions, I'm going to go to my number line again. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. A less than or equal to -10, less than is to the left, the same direction of the arrow. I'm going to go left of the -10, and because of the equal portion of the inequality, I put a square bracket. This one, A is greater than or equal to 4. The arrow is to the right side of the 4, and again a square bracket. So now to write these solutions under these 2 bars in interval notation, I have to have 2 intervals, one for this segment and one for this segment. Now, the leftmost value, this arrow is going toward -infinity. So I'm going from -infinity to -10 underneath this left bar. So -infinity to -10. Now infinity is really not a number, so we cannot put a closed bracket on it. It's just kind of a region or a direction, so you always put a parenthesis on infinity. The right bar goes from 4 to positive infinity. So I write 4, infinity, and you really don't have to put the plus sign in front of the infinity. Both of these regions provide solutions to this original absolute value inequality. So we will put a U, call it representing the union of those 2 intervals, to be all of the solutions of that inequality. So we have all 3 of them here. All 3. So the equation has 2 solutions written as what they call a set, or set notation. The two inequalities are worked very differently. If it's a less than, I use a compound inequality. If it's a greater than, I split it to two branches. Again, my answers are uniquely different in appearance also. When it's a less than symbol, I usually only get one interval as a solution. And when it's a greater than symbol, I often get two disjoint intervals that I include both of them in my solution. So very important you see all three versions, that you recognize the difference in the way the question is asked, the difference in the answer, and the difference in the processing to get to the answer. Again, these are often asked all in the same section of your college algebra book. So it's imperative that you recognize the three different methods to the three different questions. I hope this recording was helpful, and I hope that I'm just grateful that you stuck with me to the end. You have a great day.